They handed it to me like a gift. A shiny brochure. Blue and white. With smiling nurses and a fake fireplace on the cover. "Happy birthday, Mom," they said. The candles on my cake were still burning. I hadn't even opened my mouth to speak. Inside the envelope, they'd scheduled my tour. Room B14. Private bath. Window view. Not a word about asking me. Just assumptions. So I reached into my purse. Pulled out the other envelopes. Set them gently on each of their plates. "That's fine," I said. "You can open yours now." They say peace is quiet. But there's a kind of quiet that settles over your bones like dust. You don't notice it until you're covered in it. Until it's too thick to shake off. My mornings always began the same. Kettle on. 2 tea bags. Honey, not sugar. 1 cracked mug, older than my children. I'd sit by the window facing east. Let the light hit the floor just right. The geraniums needed that hour, no more, no less. They never saw that. That I still noticed the light. Still counted the petals. Still remembered which bird sang at which hour. To them I was just slower. A fixture. Like the old wallpaper. Still there. But outdated. They meant well. I think. Maybe not all the time. I remember the first time my daughter moved the salt. I'd always kept it near the stove. Easy reach while stirring. But she placed it on the high shelf. Too close to the heat, Mom. That's how it started. Small things. They dressed themselves as help. But help without asking is control wearing perfume. They didn't move into my house all at once. It happened like Ivy. First my granddaughter. Just for a few weeks. Then my daughter, after her divorce. Then my son after his brief career pause. And suddenly I had 3 calendars I wasn't invited to. Still I cooked. Still I folded laundry. Still, I left fresh towels at the edge of their beds. I told myself I was lucky. Lucky to have noise again. Lucky to hear laughter in the halls. But sometimes I'd find my book moved. My chair taken. My name not mentioned in dinner conversations. It wasn't loneliness. It was something thinner. Like watching your own hands turn invisible. The photo wall in the hallway told its own story. Baby pictures. Graduations. Weddings. All carefully hung by my daughter. My face was there. But I had been moved to the far edge. Next to the thermostat. Clipped by glare. Almost an afterthought. One afternoon, I found a grocery list I didn't write. It included low-sodium crackers and adult diapers. Neither of which I've ever needed. I placed it back on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a rooster. The rooster fell 2 hours later. I swept it up without a word. I was useful until I was in the way. Present until I was inconvenient. Still, I made peace with their noise. Their rushing. Their dismissals. Because I remembered a time when they were small. When I held all of them against my chest. And they fit. There's a memory I keep close. A Tuesday morning. My daughter was 7. She came into the kitchen with a ladybug cupped in her hands. She whispered, "It trusts me." And now she locks my pill bottles in a safe box. Just in case. Just to be sure. I once wrote her name and icing on a homemade cake. Now she brings home store-bought muffins in plastic wrap. Says she's too tired to cook. One evening I found a bruise on my arm. Didn't know how I got it. But when I mentioned it, they looked at each other. Not at me. Never at me. I wasn't truly lonely. Just quietly replaced. By timers. By apps. By their ideas of what I needed. I gave them space. Let them repaint the bathroom. Let them take down the curtains I hand-stitched. My son's voice grew louder with each conversation. Not angry, just patronizing. As if volume would erase time. "You forgot your pills again, Mom." No, I didn't forget. I chose not to take them yet. But they never ask. They explain things to me now. Not with me. My granddaughter once offered to help me dress. I smiled and said I was fine. She said, "It's okay, Nana. We all get old." And I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because I know that silence says more than noise ever could. There's a bruise on the wall near the pantry. From the time I bumped it moving a heavy dish. I left it there. Didn't scrub it out. It reminded me I still had weight. That I still existed. The day before my birthday, I baked my mother's lemon cake. The one they never eat anymore. Too tart, they say. Too old-fashioned. I set it on the table anyway. The glaze cracked perfectly. The scent wrapped around the kitchen like a memory. Nobody touched it. But I did. I took one perfect slice. And sat on the porch. In the chair they said was too unstable. It held me just fine. It was my 75th. They'd been whispering all week. Closing doors gently. Smiling just a little too wide. Like children planning a surprise. I wore my green sweater. The one my late husband said brought out my eyes. Set the table myself. Took out the blue plates. Even folded the cloth napkins into little fans. I made my lemon cake again. Still too tart for them. But I made it anyway. They brought balloons. A banner that said "Celebrate You." Plastic cups. Store-bought wine. My son gave a little toast. Talked about how resilient I was. How proud he was of me. Then glanced sideways at my daughter. I noticed that look. Quick, careful. Like a handoff in plain sight. Then she handed me the envelope. Peach-colored. Heavy. Said it was a gift we all chipped in for. I opened it slowly. Inside was a glossy brochure. Shiny. Smiling people on the cover. A place called Willow Pines Living. I flipped it open. Private rooms. On-call nurses. Spa hours. Family welcome anytime. Then I saw the tour date. Already booked. Already assigned. Room B14. They didn't ask me. They planned it. My fingers froze. Not from anger. Not yet. Just cold. The kind of cold that moves up from your knees and settles behind your ribs. The kind that doesn't show on your face, but echoes in your bones. The room got quiet, even though people were still talking. I could see mouths moving. But all I heard was the rustle of paper in my hand. And then I noticed it. A second paper, tucked behind the brochure. Floral print. My full name written in black ink. Not Mom. Not Nana. Just my government name. The handwriting was familiar. But not mine. I didn't read it. Not yet. Just folded it gently. And slid it under my napkin. Then I closed the brochure. Set it on the table. And smiled. I see, I said. Or maybe I just thought it. They were still chattering. My daughter saying something about safety. My son nodding, like this was a responsible decision. Like I was a job well delegated. And there I sat. A guest in the life I made. I looked around the table. The paint on the walls. I'd chosen that shade. The chandelier. I picked it out with my husband the year after his promotion. The wine glasses, a wedding gift from a friend who'd passed. Everything around them was me. Every plate. Every curtain. Every brick outside that window. And they wanted me gone. Tucked away. Convenient. Safe. Quiet. Contained. I took a sip of lukewarm tea. Felt my hands steady. Then I reached into my purse. Pulled out the letters I'd been carrying for weeks. Just in case. Not because I expected this moment. But because something inside me had shifted long ago. Somewhere between forgotten birthdays and condescending glances. I slid one envelope in front of each of them. No words. Just placed. My daughter stopped talking. My son raised his eyebrows. I let the silence sit there. Let it fill the room like smoke. I guess we both had gifts, I said softly. They looked down. My son opened his first. He read the word eviction out loud. Once. Then again quieter. My daughter didn't open hers. Just stared at the unopened flap. Like it might change its mind. Nobody spoke. Not even my granddaughter. She looked confused. Still too young to understand adult betrayal. But old enough to feel the tension. I turned back to my cake. Took a bite. The lemon was sharper than I remembered. But it woke something in me. Something I thought I'd buried years ago. The right to say no. The right to stay. The house was mine again. Even if they didn't know it yet. I let the silence stay a little longer. It deserved to be heard. It didn't start with the brochure. It started with smaller things. Things so quiet they slipped past me. At first, I let them go. I called it grace. But now I know it was something else. They took my chair. The blue one with the patch on the arm. The one I rocked each of them in. Gone. Replaced by something modern, gray square. No lumbar support, they said. It wasn't about comfort. It was about forgetting what held them. I asked once, "Where's the blue chair?" They said, "It was old, Mom." Like old meant useless. I found it in the garage months later, wrapped in plastic, pushed behind a box labeled Halloween 2019. They moved my bedroom to the back of the house. Said it was quieter. Less stairs. Better air circulation. I told myself they meant well. That they wanted me closer to the garden. But the room was smaller. No window seat. No sound of the street I used to fall asleep to. My world shrank. Like laundry dried too long. One day, I made dinner. Roast chicken, sweet carrots, red potatoes with dill. Same recipe I've used for decades. My son added salt before tasting it. Didn't even look up. Just reached across the table like I was invisible. My daughter asked if I remembered to turn off the oven. I did. She checked anyway. It was the tone more than the question. That careful, tilted voice people use when they've already decided you're slipping. I told myself it was stress. That maybe they were tired. But the way she wiped the counter after I'd already cleaned it. That wasn't stress. That was dismissal. They started using group texts without me. I'd hear the ping, then silence. Ask what it was, and they'd say nothing important. Funny how many nothing importance led to furniture disappearing, medications arriving, decisions made. My name stopped appearing in the calendar. Just dentist Nana. Or, pick up meds M. Not Mom. Not lunch with Mom. Just letters and logistics. I was reduced to an errand. One morning, I found my old recipe box in the giveaway pile. Not by accident. They'd set it aside, next to old towels and chipped mugs. Each card in that box had a story. Stains from little fingers, notes from friends long gone. But to them it was clutter. Something to be digitized. I took it back. Didn't say a word. Just returned it to its drawer. And dared them to try again. My granddaughter used to sit on my bed and brush my hair. We'd laugh about the gray strands that curled the wrong way. But lately, she only visits with earbuds in. Smiles through me. Her mother told me not to expect much. Teenagers are like that. But I remember being a teenager too. And I still noticed my mother. Still loved her in the room. They started calling me ma'am when guests were over. As if Mom was too familiar. As if I were a tenant in a story they were trying to rewrite. One night, I walked into the kitchen. And heard my daughter say, "She's not who she used to be." She didn't know I heard. I didn't correct her. Didn't ask what she meant. But I folded that sentence and tucked it away. Right next to the others. Flashbacks sneak in. Like dreams walking backward. I remembered the time my son broke his leg and cried in my arms. The smell of antiseptic and winter in his hair. Now he rolls his eyes when I ask for help with the TV remote. I remembered when my daughter lost her first job. And we sat on the porch in the dark. She drank wine, I held her hand. Now she barely lets me hold my own opinions. "I think you should get a life alert," she said once. I said, "I have a cell phone." She smiled like I was joking. But I wasn't. They don't hear me anymore. Not the way people listen to stay close. Only the way you listen to a clock ticking. A sound you tolerate until it's too loud to ignore. One day, I found a gift I'd given my granddaughter, a silver bracelet, in the donation box. Still in its box. Still unworn. She said, "Oh, I forgot it was there." I nodded. "I did too," I said. "I used to wake up early to make them pancakes. Now they leave before I'm even out of bed. Say they'll eat at work. Say they're too busy. Sometimes I'd leave little notes for them. On the fridge. On the bathroom mirror. Have a beautiful day. Remember, you are loved." They stopped replying. One day, I found my note in the trash. Unfolded. Unread. So I stopped writing them. The silence was easier to carry than the echo of being ignored. It wasn't any single moment that broke me. It was the slow erosion. Like waves eating away the edge of a cliff. Steady. Unnoticed. Until one day, you look down. And there's nothing holding you up anymore. I used to think love meant sacrifice. Now I know. Love without respect is just convenience. And I was tired of being convenient. It happened on a Tuesday. The kind of quiet Tuesday where nothing should matter. But everything did. I was folding laundry, still warm from the dryer, still smelling faintly of lavender. That's when I saw it. My apron. The old one, pale yellow, embroidered edges, one pocket stitched crooked. My husband's favorite. My daughter used to tug on it when she was little. She'd hide her face in it when thunderstorms came. Now it was soaked, crusted in something red, smeared like a rag. I held it in my hands like a dead bird. Walked to the kitchen. My daughter looked up from her tablet. "Oh, sorry," she said. The dog knocked over a bottle of sauce. We needed something fast. She went back to scrolling. Didn't see my fingers tremble. Didn't notice the way I folded the apron carefully, as if trying to protect what was already gone. I didn't speak. Not because I didn't have words, but because none of them would land right. They'd scatter, like crumbs after slicing stale bread. I walked to my room, the smaller one, the one they upgraded me to, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. Those same hands that changed their diapers, pulled splinters, wrote checks when the rent was late, clapped at recitals, stirred soup through fevers. Now those hands, they were just old, unnoticed, used. I looked around the room. Only 2 photos, both crooked, neither chosen by me. The dresser was chipped. Not from wear, but from being dragged too hard when they moved it. My books were still packed in a box labeled Nana's Things Someday. I opened it. Inside, among the dog-eared novels and recipe books, was a photo. Faded, bent at the corners. Me holding my son, barefoot in the backyard. Dirt on my knees. Sunlight caught in our teeth. He was laughing. I was alive. I pressed it against my chest. Closed my eyes. And suddenly, like a dam cracking, the memories surged. The night I stayed up sewing his Halloween costume. The day I found my daughter crying in the bathroom, holding a rejection letter from a college that should have said yes. How I knelt beside her. Didn't say a word. Just held her hand until the silence healed. I remember the cold morning my husband died. How they all leaned on me. How I didn't cry, not then. Because I thought I had to stay strong for them. I've been strong for so long. I forgot what it felt like to be held. A breeze came in through the cracked window. Carried the smell of honeysuckle from the neighbor's fence. Sweet. Too sweet. Made my throat ache. I stood up. Went to the hall closet. Reached for a box I hadn't opened in years. Inside. Baby shoes. Crayon drawings. A single envelope with my husband's handwriting. Addressed to me. I didn't open it. Not yet. Just held it. It felt heavier than paper should. Like it carried everything I'd forgotten I was allowed to feel. I walked back to the kitchen. Everyone was gone. Just a mess left behind. Cups. Plates. A single shoe. The lemon cake still sat untouched. They didn't even notice I made it. I sat at the table. Cut myself a slice. The fork was dull. The frosting cracked. Still it was mine. I ate it slowly. Let it sting. Let it remind me. Halfway through, my hand brushed the edge of something under the table. I bent down. It was the welcome mat. Rolled up. Set aside like trash. I stared at the space it used to be. That small square of belonging. Gone. I sat back up. Looked around the kitchen. That's when it hit me. It wasn't theirs. None of it. The walls. The windows. The broken clock above the sink. It was all built on my back. My time. My choices. My sacrifices. I had become the relic in my own museum. They walked past me like I was furniture. But this house was mine. This life was mine. I stood. Walked to the door. Stepped outside barefoot. The porch was cracked in places. My husband's handiwork worn by time. But it still held me. It always did. I looked out at the garden. Tomato vines curled dry against the fence. Peppers overgrown. Weeds between the herbs. I knelt. Pulled one weed. Then another. Dirt under my nails. Sweat on my neck. It felt like remembering. Like waking up. I heard the door open behind me. "You okay, Mom?" My daughter asked. I didn't turn around. I just whispered, "Yes." But what I meant was, "Not yet. But I will be." And maybe for the first time in a long while, I knew it was true. Have you ever remembered something small, just when everything felt like it was falling apart? Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it clicks. One key, one signature, one drawer opened slowly. The morning after the cake went untouched, I rose before sunrise. Didn't make tea. Didn't look at the calendar. Just sat at the edge of the bed and listened. No one was awake. Only the hum of the fridge down the hall, and the faint creak of floorboards breathing beneath the weight of silence. I opened my closet. The old one, back in the room they'd pushed me into. Found the metal box. Not locked. Just covered in dust. Inside, deed papers. Birth certificates. Power of attorney mine, not theirs. Old letters with my husband's name in thick black ink. They hadn't bothered to look. Hadn't realized I still held the roots. I took out what I needed, tucked the rest away, left the dust. I didn't pack a suitcase. I wasn't going anywhere. That afternoon, I visited Gerald, my lawyer for 32 years. He wore the same brown suit, still chewed on his glasses before he spoke. He asked if I was sure. I nodded once. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough. We rewrote the deed, removed their names, reclaimed the house in silence. He slid the papers back into their envelope and said, "You have time to think." I said, "I've already done too much of that." I paid in cash, counted each bill myself, not because I didn't trust him, but because I needed to feel each dollar leaving my hand, each one earned with callous fingers and quiet dinners. When I got home, they were gone. Groceries, maybe, or some errand I hadn't been told about. Good. I went to the hallway, to the mailbox label by the front door. It used to say the Marshalls, my husband's name. Then my son added his beneath it, and my daughter wrote hers with a Sharpie underneath his. My name had been covered with a sticker, a cheap one, like I didn't live here anymore, like I was temporary. I peeled it back, letter by letter. It took time. The glue held on longer than I expected, but I was patient. Then I wrote my name, in black ink, in full. Not Nana. Not Ma. Just me, Elaine M. Marshall. Then I went to the kitchen drawer, the one where they kept the spare keys. I took them all, placed them in a glass bowl, set it in the center of the table. Next, I opened the storage closet, pulled out the boxes with their names, labeled each one clearly, color-coded tape. No drama, just organization. By the time they came home, I was in the garden. My hands were dirty, my knees wet, and my name was back on the mailbox. My daughter came outside first. She smiled. "Whatcha working on?" I looked at the dirt, at the roots I had uncovered, just reclaiming what's mine. She laughed. Didn't understand. She would. Soon. That evening I made soup. From scratch. Turned off the Wi-Fi. Turned on the radio instead. The old station, jazz and talk shows no one listens to anymore. I served the soup without asking. No choices. No substitutions. They ate in silence. I left the envelope on the table when I cleared the dishes. Didn't hand it to them. Just left it there. Right where they had placed the brochure 2 nights ago. I didn't watch them open it. Didn't wait for questions. Instead, I walked outside. To the shed. My husband's old tools still hung on rusted nails. His boots still under the bench. I picked up the paintbrush, the wide one, and dipped it into white. Walked to the mailbox. Painted over the sticker residue. Slow strokes. Even pressure. Fresh start. I didn't slam the door when I came back inside. I just closed it. Finally. That night, I slept without locking the door. Not because I trusted them, but because I didn't fear them anymore. The next morning, I woke early again. No alarm. No phone call. Just breath. And sunlight through the blinds. I walked to the mirror. Braided my hair. Put on earrings. For no one. Then I took the welcome mat. Carried it down the street. Dropped it in the donation bin. I didn't need to be welcomed in my own home. Later that day, they started asking questions. Tense voices. Fast footsteps. I kept sweeping the porch. Didn't look up. "Mom, can we talk?" I paused. Sure, I said. Still sweeping. Still standing. Not moved. They tried their reasons. Tried kindness. Tried panic. I listened. Let them speak. Then I said, you can stay until Sunday. After that, this house breathes without you. No yelling. No slamming. Just facts. And time. And silence. The kind that doesn't ask permission. The kind that builds walls. And tears down guilt. Without a single raised voice. Elaine gently deletes the voicemail from her daughter marked urgent. Call back. No expression. No hesitation. Just a slow press of her thumb. Delete. Not flames. Not fists. Just heat beneath the surface. Strong enough to melt steel. Have you ever stayed quiet just to keep the peace? You think you've seen the worst of someone, until you find out they prepared for your absence before you even considered leaving. It was raining that morning. Not heavy. Just the kind of rain that taps on the windows like a whisper you almost ignore. I was going through the filing cabinet, looking for the warranty on the washing machine. They said it was broken. It wasn't. Just needed to be closed properly. Second drawer, far back. I found it. The floral envelope. The same one they slipped into the brochure. The one I hadn't opened. I did this time. Inside. A copy of my signature. A consent form. Medical release. Permission to act on my behalf. I never signed it. But my name was there. Perfectly written. Only, it wasn't my handwriting. I held it up to the light. No pressure indentation. Printed, not penned. Forged. There was a letter attached. Dated 2 weeks before my birthday. From Willow Pines. Confirming my upcoming stay. So, they hadn't just planned it. They'd built it. Paper by paper. Behind my back. That wasn't help. That wasn't concern. That was betrayal wearing my name. I felt it in my chest. Not like anger. Like absence. Like something had been taken and replaced with cold. I sat back in my chair. Listened to the rain. I thought of all the things I'd given them. Not just money or space. But belief. My belief that they'd never use me. To make their lives easier. I opened the bottom drawer. Pulled out the small tin box I hadn't touched in years. Inside, old letters from my husband. One marked for Elaine, when you're alone. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I walked to the safe. Used the code only I knew. Took out the original deed. My husband's signature in faded black ink. There was something else tucked inside. A photograph. Not one I remembered placing there. It was me, holding our firstborn. Standing in front of this same house. No paint on the siding. No swing on the porch yet. Just raw lumber. And our tired smiles. I stared at it. Then I noticed something else. Tucked in the corner of the frame. An old check. Never cashed. Made out to my name. From my husband. In the memo. For your freedom, if you ever need it. I hadn't seen it in over 40 years. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So I did neither. Just held it. That was the hidden thing. The symbol from back then. Tucked in the brochure, quiet and dangerous. Now full of meaning. They didn't just try to move me. They tried to erase me. To write over a life I built with calloused hands and tired prayers. That night, I asked my daughter directly. Did you sign my name on anything? She blinked. Paused. Sipped her tea. Then said, it was just paperwork, Mom. You don't understand how hard it's been. That's when I knew. She didn't feel guilt. She felt burdened. I nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't cry. Just whispered. You could have asked. She said nothing. I walked to my room. Pulled out the letter my husband left. Finally opened it. It was short. If you're reading this, they've forgotten who you are. Don't forget. You're not their burden. You're their root. I folded it. Pressed it to my lips. Then I placed it in the same floral envelope. Set it on the hallway table. No note. No explanation. Just truth folded quietly. They hadn't taken my name. They'd taken the idea of me. Turned it into obligation. Masked it as concern. And beneath it all, they never saw the woman. Only the weight. But I remembered her. I held her close that night. I sat at the kitchen table, with that old check beside my tea, the pen in my hand, the deed beside it, and I started writing names. Not theirs, just mine, and one other. A young single mother down the street. Kind, gentle, always asked before stepping on the garden soil. I remembered her telling me once, if I ever had a home like yours, I'd treat it like a blessing. So I wrote hers too, because blessings don't belong to those who forge. They belong to those who remember. The floral envelope, once just a detail, now holds the forged document and her husband's final letter, a symbol of what they tried to overwrite and what she reclaimed. The house was quiet the next morning. Not the strained kind, not the quiet of tension, of words swallowed. No, this was the quiet of decision, of air rearranging itself around a woman who had finally remembered she could choose. I didn't make breakfast, didn't fold their laundry, didn't check the group text that always left me out. Instead, I went outside, to the garden, the place they never cared for. I took the shears, cut the dead vines, pulled weeds by the root. Then I planted something new. Marigolds. The seeds had been sitting in the kitchen drawer since my last trip to the nursery. I don't know why I hadn't planted them. Maybe I was waiting for permission. Or maybe I forgot that the soil was still mine. When I came back inside, I saw the eviction envelopes still on the table. Untouched. Unopened. It didn't matter. They'd leave eventually, whether by choice or by silence. I went to the hallway, to the dusty shelf near the coat rack, pulled out a wrapped bundle. My wedding shawl, worn thin but whole. I sat with it, fingers tracing the stitchwork. Every loop a year, every worn thread a memory. I thought about giving it to my daughter once. But now I knew, not every legacy deserves to be passed down. Instead, I folded it neatly, placed it in a box, wrote a name on the tag, Angela, the young woman from down the street, the one who always offered to carry my groceries, who called me Ms. Elaine, even when no one else bothered. She would receive the deed too. Not yet. But one day, when I was ready, because that's what peace is. A choice, not a surrender. They say forgiveness is freedom. Maybe, but boundaries are peace. I wrote a letter, addressed it to myself. You stayed longer than you should have, but you left exactly when you were ready. I placed it in the tin box with my husband's check, then opened the junk drawer. The brochure was still there. Willow pines. Room B14. Smiling nurses, laminated floors, clean linens. I smiled too. Then I folded the brochure into a square and set it under the marigold pot. Roots need something to press against, even if it's paper lies. Later that day, I knocked on Angela's door. She was barefoot, holding her baby boy. I handed her a folded piece of paper. Not the deed, not yet. Just an invitation. To the garden, I said. Tomorrow. Bring him. I'll make lemonade. She blinked, surprised. Then nodded. When I got back home, I went to the mailbox. Took out the mail. One more envelope from Willow Pines. Your scheduled tour is this Friday. I smiled. Wrote one word across the envelope. Return. Didn't even open it. That evening, my granddaughter finally spoke. She'd been quiet lately. Not sulking, just watching. She asked, Nana, are you mad at Mom? I looked at her. At the way her eyes flickered like her father's once did. At the way she waited for truth, not comfort. No, baby, I said. I'm just remembering who I am. She sat beside me, took my hand. Didn't ask anything more. That was enough. I gave her the silver bracelet that had once ended up in the donation box. She looked guilty. I forgot, she whispered. I know, I said. But you remembered now. That's what mattered. The floral envelope, now in the tin box, but emptied of its betrayal. Its weight transformed. Where it once held forged consent, it now holds her husband's letter and her own truth. That night, I washed the good china. The ones they said were too fragile to use. I set one plate aside. One glass. One napkin folded just so. For me. Not a guest. Not a caretaker. Not a patient. Just me. I played old music on the record player. Sang out loud. Let my voice fill the house they once tried to shrink. Not with rage. Not with revenge. Just presence. There's a kind of strength in walking away. But there's another kind in staying. And taking your name back. Your room. Your peace. Would you have walked away or taken everything back? They came back on a Sunday. 2 days after the letters were left untouched on the table. 1 day before the locks were set to change. I was in the garden, hands deep in marigold soil, when I heard the car door slam. My son's voice came first. Firm then frantic. Mom. He didn't call me that much anymore. Not unless he needed something. But that morning, he needed everything. I stood up slowly. Wiped my hands on my apron. The same one they once used to clean up spilled sauce. I didn't rush. Didn't open the gate. Let him come to me. He held the envelope in his hand. Wrinkled now. Opened. Finally read. Mom, come on. We didn't mean this. We were just trying to help you. I met his eyes. Brown like his father's. But not steady. Help. That word again. They dressed their betrayal in it. Hung it on every excuse. You helped yourselves, I said. Not cruel. Not angry. Just clear. Not me. He looked down. Hands tightening on the paper. My daughter appeared next. No makeup. Keys dangling from her fingers like apology. This is still your home, she said. Voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. No, I replied. It was my home. You lived in it like I didn't exist. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Stepped back. My granddaughter stood behind them, arms crossed. Watching. Learning. She didn't speak. But she didn't look away either. I turned and walked to the porch. Opened the door. Left it wide. Not for them to enter. Just to make my point. They followed. Slow, cautious. Like they were guests again. Because they were. The boxes were by the door. Labeled. Taped. Ready. His name. Her name. Not mine. She reached toward one. Mom, you're really doing this? I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the table. Picked up the tin box. Opened it. Took out the check. Held it for a moment. I gave everything, I said. Time. Space. Dignity. And you repaid me with paperwork and plans you didn't even ask me about. My son sat down slowly. Like his legs couldn't hold the weight anymore. We thought we were losing you, he whispered. Eyes red now. Like the tears had finally remembered how to fall. I sat too. Across from him. One hand on the table. Open. Still. You didn't lose me, I said. You let go of me. Then tried to box me up so I wouldn't remind you. No one argued. Not now. The silence didn't need room to grow. It already owned the space. My daughter stepped forward. I miss you, she said. I looked at her. I was always here, I replied. You just stopped seeing me. Behind her, my granddaughter took a step inside. Her eyes didn't beg. They simply searched. I nodded toward her. She can visit, I said. But she won't clean up your messes anymore. They understood. Not all at once. But enough. The power had shifted. Not in fire. Not in screams. But in absence. They weren't in control. They were just waiting. Where are we supposed to go? My son asked. I stood. Walked toward the door. Held it open with one hand. You built your own lives. Live in them. He looked like he might say something. Didn't. Just picked up his box. And walked past me. My daughter lingered. Tried to find something soft in my face. I didn't offer it. Some things aren't gentle when they've been hardened by time. They're just firm. She followed him out. Only my granddaughter remained. I reached out. Touched her cheek. You remind me of who I was before the noise, I said. She blinked fast. Then hugged me. The kind of hug that doesn't ask for permission. The kind that gives it. They stood at the edge of the driveway. 3 people once tied to my spine. Now shadows on the sidewalk. Waiting for the keys that would never come. I watched them go. No final words. No dramatic exits. Just boxes. Footsteps. Distance. I turned. Walked back inside. Closed the door. Not slammed. Not fast. Just final. She deletes the voicemail marked, "Please call me. We need to fix this." presses delete, turns off the phone, then opens the window, lets in the breeze, lets out the grief. Not victory over them, just return to herself. They now wait. She decides. They knock. She chooses. For a moment I pitied them. Then I remembered who I was. Do you believe quiet dignity is stronger than revenge? The house exhaled, like it had been holding its breath with me all these years. I walked from room to room, not to check for damage, not to count what was gone, but to feel what remained. The echo of myself in the corners. The light hitting the wall in that golden, late afternoon way. It felt like home again, because it was finally mine again. I lit a candle on the mantel, one they always said gave them headaches. Lavender and clove. The scent of my own mother's kitchen. The hallway was quiet now. No closed-door whispers. No tiptoeing around truths. Just silence. The kind that doesn't hurt anymore. The kind that lets you think. Lets you feel. I poured a glass of sweet tea. Used the good glass. The one with the chip on the rim that only I know how to sip around. Sat at the kitchen table. The floral envelope lay open beside me. Empty. Light. Once it held forged signatures. Now it held nothing. And in that nothing, I found relief. I folded it one last time. Walked to the back porch. And slid it into the fire pit. Didn't watch it burn. Just turned away. Let it be ash. Angela arrived that afternoon. Her little boy in tow. Carrying lemonade in a mason jar. And a folded blanket under one arm. We sat beneath the oak tree. The same one I planted with my husband our first summer here. It was just a sapling then. Now it shaded half the yard. Her son played in the grass. Chased butterflies he couldn't name. Laughed the kind of laugh you can't fake. She handed me a note. Torn from a spiral notebook. If you ever need company. Or quiet. Or help planting something. I smiled. Because she wasn't trying to replace anything. She just brought presence. Not need. Not guilt. Just kindness. I looked at the house from where I sat. The paint chipping at the corners. The screen door that still squeaked. The porch swing that leaned a little left. Perfect. Not because it looked like a picture. But because it looked like my life. I gave Angela the shawl. Wrapped it in brown paper with a string. Didn't explain. Just placed it in her hands. She cried. Softly. Said she'd take care of it. I nodded. Take care of yourself too, I said. We planted 2 new rows of marigolds before sunset. The brochure sat beneath the middle pot. Roots curling around it now. Feeding from something false. To grow something real. That's what healing does. It grows in the cracks. It doesn't ask. It becomes. That night I unlocked the cabinet where the good dishes lived. Set one place. Linen napkin. Cloth runner. Silverware polished by my own hand. I made roast chicken. With sweet carrots. Red potatoes. No substitutions. I sat by the window. A breeze came through. Carried the smell of honeysuckle in soil. I took a deep breath. No one was watching. No one interrupting. No one erasing. And that was peace. Not gifted. Not permitted. Claimed. The next morning, I walked to the river. Took the spare key. The one that once opened the house. To people who no longer deserved entry. Held it in my hand. Felt its weight. Not much. But just enough. Then I let it go. Dropped it into the water. Watched it sink. Didn't flinch. Didn't reach. Let it fall. Because some keys aren't meant to open anything again. I walked home barefoot. Felt the earth hold me. The way a place does. When it knows you belong. They handed me a brochure. Asking me to give up my place. I gave them eviction letters. Took back my name. Took back the seat at the table. And now? Now the chair is mine again. The one they said was too unstable. I sit in it every morning. Tea in hand. Geraniums in bloom. Sunlight right where it should be. I was never the echo. I was the voice they tried to silence. The key I never gave became the one that freed me.